Moadim l'simcha. This is Techelet with another short video. This time coming up to Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. Rav Ido, Rav Eli are with me. Well, on Zoom they're with me. Eli is in his sukkah. Ido is in his study. Due to COVID, we can't be in close proximity that we can get close to the camera together, so we are separate, but we're very much together to give you hopefully some inspiration coming up to this very strange year of Simchat Torah. Particularly is going to be very different for many of us. It's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to do the hakafot and the singing and dancing that we normally do. So we have some ideas that we'd like to share with you about Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. And today, Rav Ido is going to kick off the Techelet message for Simchat Torah, Shmini Atzeret 5781. Ido.
Okay, thank you very much. So this year in Israel, we had something very special and unique in this holiday of Simchat Torah and Shmini Atzeret, because here in Israel, we celebrate these two holidays in one day. Shmini Atzeret is Simchat Torah. And usually when I ask people, especially young people, what do we celebrate today in this 8th day of Sukkot? So they tell me, of course, we celebrate Simchat Torah. And they don't remember that originally the mitzvah of the day is not Simchat Torah, but the mitzvah to celebrate in this day is Shmini Atzeret. So what is Shmini Atzeret and what is Simchat Torah? From the Torah, we don't have Simchat Torah. We don't have such a thing. And the reason is that they didn't read the Torah. In the days of the Torah, they didn't read Parshat Shavua every week. And that's why, according to the Torah, what we celebrate in Shmini Atzeret is just a holiday without symbols, without anything, just to celebrate with God the 8th day of Sukkot. And this is a holiday from the Torah. So when Simchat Torah, when did it come from? It came from Babylon. In Eretz Israel, they used to read the Torah, to finish the reading of the Torah once in 3 years. And that's why they didn't celebrate the Torah, at least not every year. But in Babylon, they used to read and to finish the Torah every year. So they used to celebrate the Simchat Torah once in a year. And they did it on Shmini Atzeret. So the whole minhag to celebrate Simchat Torah came from Babylon, from the Galut. It came from the days of the Gonim. I talk about 7th of 8th year, the century, sorry. So the original mitzvah from the Torah is Shmini Atzeret, just to have Yom Tov. What happened in history? The minhag to celebrate Simchat Torah, it took over this day. It swallowed the mitzvah of the Torah. People forgot the mitzvah of the Torah to celebrate, to be with God, to eat and drink, to be happy. And they just focused on Simchat Torah, celebrating with the Torah. And it's something that happened in history, and I think now today, in these very special times of the COVID-19, so now we have the opportunity to celebrate again the mitzvah of the Torah. Yes, this year in Eretz Israel, we will not be able to celebrate all Simchat Torah. We will not be able to make a kafot and all the big celebration that we have every year. It will be much shortened. So what do we do in this day? What we will do in this day? Now we have the opportunity to go back and to celebrate the mitzvah of the Torah, Shmini Atzeret. What do we do here? What do we do in this mitzvah? Just celebrating. What is, according to the Gemara, this celebration should be Chetzio lachem and Chetzio laHashem. You should go to shul, you should pray, you should learn Torah, but half of it you have to celebrate by eating, drinking, being with your family, etc. Today we have the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of the Torah as it was written in the Torah itself. So this is one little thing that we can find, a little light that we can find in the reality that we are living in today. Yes, opportunity to fulfill the original mitzvah of the Torah. And for me, it's a very, very important idea of this day, to remember what is mitzvah, what is minhag, and we fulfill the mitzvah, not only the minhag that came later in history.
It's very interesting that you should say that, because you use the expression swallowed up. And that's exactly the expression that I used when I was talking about this a few days ago. I used a slightly different English expression, gobbled up, which means to swallow very quickly and very, very in a serious way. And this is what's happened in Eretz Israel. Of course, in Chutz La'aretz, we don't feel it quite so much, because we have 2 days there, and we do have a Shmini Atzeret and the Simchat Torah. Those people who celebrate here in Israel will understand what you mean much more than the people in Chutz La'aretz. Even in Chutz La'aretz, people sort of look forward to Simchat Torah perhaps more than the Shmini Atzeret because of the joy of the day. But certainly here in Israel, as you mentioned, Shmini Atzeret is completely forgotten, which is very sad. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But now I want Eli to tell us his thoughts about the meaning of Shmini Atzeret.
Thank you. Yeah, so I actually, coming from the Galus to here, and also really only celebrating Simchat Torah, and whoever really thought about Shmini Atzeret, that's really the fun, right? The fun is the Simchat Torah in our minds. That's how we're taught. That's how we're brought up. When I really think about Shmini Atzeret, especially in the past few years, 2 things come to mind. One is that Shmini Atzeret and this Chag is really made to be celebrated in Eretz Yisrael. We on Sukkot, we go out to the Sukkah, and then when it's done, and specifically Shmini Atzeret, we don't sit in the Sukkah. We go back into our home. It's all about the land. It's going back to your home, back to the land. What are you celebrating? You're celebrating the land. That's what we're celebrating. It's Chag HaAsif. We've now gathered all of the wheat and barley and wherever else we have from the fields, and we go from the spiritual to the mundane, as you can say, and that separation is Shmini Atzeret. And you see it very clearly. It's actually really, I would even say, it's the first day of the new year in a lot of ways. Why? Because 2 months ago we started with the first of Elul, which has a very solemn feel towards the end of the year. We have Judgment Day, Rosh Hashanah, which is fully spiritual. 10 days of Atzeret Yimei Tshuva, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. 4 days later, within those days, we build a sukkah. We get excited. We go out, and we all know that the reason we go out for the sukkah, either celebrating the Hanina Kavod or what we talk about of going out for spiritual reasons, right? We leave the Gashmius of the house and we come into the Ruchnis, the spiritual side of the sukkah. And now we celebrate a week of eating in the sukkah, Simcha Beit Shoeva, and then we get to the end. And now we've had this high of holidays, and now we get to the end. And before we say goodbye, the Torah says, you know what? You need to celebrate one more day. But how are you celebrating it? Really doing nothing, just celebrating. Why? Because just like really the lead up to a wedding, right, has a lot of excitement, and then you have the wedding day. But anyone who's married or happily married understands that the real celebration is the day after. And the same thing here. The real celebration is the day after. We've succeeded getting through Rosh Hashanah. We've succeeded getting through Yom Kippur. We've enjoyed the Sukkot holiday. Now we have to enjoy and be inspired by Shmini Atzeret, a day of really just enjoying. It's a chag, just to enjoy with Hashem. That's the day. That's the whole purpose. And that in itself is unique and special, and we should not underappreciate it. We should appreciate it. That's the idea, in my mind.
So it's very interesting that you talk about this being the end of the cycle. I always feel at the end of this cycle, a certain sadness descends on me. It's almost like my shoulders drop a little bit, and I think, wow, that's it. It's all over until Pesach. Okay, we have Chanukah, we have Purim, but really, that's it until Pesach. 6 months. How am I going to get through 6 months without a chag? We've had that in high intensity, as you mentioned earlier, that high intensity of the Yamim Noraim, the spirituality of Sukkot, almost the relief of Sukkot in a way after Yom Kippur. It's a sort of a relief, a released valve of all our emotions that come out in Yom Kippur is there in Sukkot. And then we go back into the house and we have Shmini Atzeret. And at the end of Shmini Atzeret, I always feel that element of sadness that it's all over. And of course, Shmini Atzeret itself, I want to pick up something that Ido said, and gives me an opportunity to correct him because I like to be able to do that from time to time. He called it the 8th day of Sukkot. It's not the 8th day of Sukkot. It's a separate Chag. Sukkot is 7 days. Shmini Atzeret is a Chag of its own.
But it's called Shmini Atzeret. Shmini is the 8th day. So its name says it, that the 8th day of Sukkot. Yes, so the Gemara says that in 6 things it's separated from Sukkot. Pazer Kashev, Pai Zman Regel, Zman Shir Korban, Korban Shir Bracha, sorry. The Gemara says, but this is one aspect. Yes, we don't sacrifice the sacrifices of Sukkot, and we bless Shecheyanu, etc. So it's separated. But on the other hand, it's Shmini Atzeret. We have only 3 regalim and not 4. It's the 8th day.
The word that I want to pick up on is the word Atzeret, which comes from the word Atzor, to stop. So it's Atzeret. It's stopping over. And it's commonly said that anybody who's had nice visitors to your house on occasions, maybe your children or your grandchildren who don't come very often, and they come and then it's time to go, and then you say, "Oh, please, just stay a little longer. Stay just another half an hour. I don't want you to go." That's the feeling that we should be having when it comes to Shmini Atzeret. We should be saying, this is just our last opportunity. If you want, we're just chapping that last bit of our chag, our last bit of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We've got 6 months now until we have Pesach, till we have another chag. And we want to make the most of that day of Shmini Atzeret. For me, it's an opportunity to stop. No symbols, no sukkah, no arba minim, no matzah, not even a cheesecake. Just a chag, for chag's sake. Just because this is our last opportunity to be close with our spirituality, to actually connect. And this year we can perhaps do it even more than most, because many of us will not be going to shul. Many of us will be davening at home, and we've now got used to that idea of davening at home. And many people have said to me, and maybe this is an indictment on our shuls, but many people have said to me how much more they have got out of davening on their own at a slow pace, understanding the words, not having to catch up with or keep up with the chazan. And this is another opportunity for us on Shmini Atzeret. There's nothing else, just chag, just us to celebrate with our families, our close families that we're allowed to be with, and of course with HaKadosh Baruch Hu who's all around us. And if we can tune into that, then we can take with us through these winter months till we get to Pesach. We can take with us that little bit. It was a bit like me. I always was told when I came back from holiday that my parents always told me that I was bad-tempered for the first few weeks because I was missing my friends that I'd met in holiday. And what I used to do is I used to sit there looking at my holiday snaps, my photographs. So this is a last opportunity for us to chap that bit of relationship that's going to take us through those winter months. I always remember when we left and we were walking home from shul after mincha, and we would meet people on Simchat Torah, and we would wish them a gitten winter, to have a good winter. And it was a sign that what was coming. We were coming to the winter, and we needed to take that bit of warmth, that bit of relationship with us. And this is our opportunity, our last opportunity, to make the most of the chagim that we are blessed with for a little while. Make the most of the opportunity. If you're at home, have a little time for yourself, have a little time for God as well with your davening. And wherever you are, think about your relationships with people around you and with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and enjoy Chag Shmini Atzeret and Chag Simchat Torah. Chag
you reminded me Johnny, you reminded me something else, something very important, I think, that, the very first scene of the people of Israel in their journey in the desert, you remember these two, Vayi bin Soharon, this parasha in the Torah, Vayi bin Soharon, Parashat Ba'alotcha, it's separated from the parasha by two nunim.
Two noons.
And Chazal, yes, and the Chazal say that this little parasha, Vayi bin Soharon, it separates two sins of the people of Israel. So the first sin we find in the Torah. What is the second one? So the Midrash says there that they ran away from Mount Sinai. They were very happy to go from there. And they didn't want to stay more time there, to spend more time in Mount Sinai. So maybe this is the same, as you said, Johnny, so beautifully. We finished the all holidays. Now the question is how we live this spiritual world. How do we live this the whole holidays? And when Chazal came and told us this is the idea of Shmini Atzeret, to spend more time with Kodesh Baruch Hu, like you tell your children, please stay more here. It tells us what is our attitude to Kodesh Baruch Hu and the holidays. It's hard for us to live the holidays, and that's why it's so special, this holiday. We don't run away from the holidays. We want to stay more, a bit more, one day to celebrate with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and this reflects what is our attitude to the Chagim. We want them. We don't want to run away from them. We want to stay with them with the holidays. Maybe, as you said, this is a very nice idea of Shmini Atzeret.
I think that's right. Sometimes, when we have you two are not there yet, but I'm in the grandchildren era. Sometimes when the grandchildren come and they make a lot of noise, and it's lovely when they come, and it's even nicer when they go, and you close the door and you think, thank God for that, they've gone. That's not the attitude that we want here. The attitude is, no, stay a little bit longer. We want you to stay a little bit longer. And that's how we should think of Shmini Atzeret. Chag Sameach to everybody.
Chag Sameach.
And
Chag
as we
Sameach.
used to say in the old days, a gitten winter.
Gute Winter.
להתראות.